No, it's in here somewhere. I just don't. I set it down mindlessly somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is now. So it's all good. Good morning, everyone. We are in the book of Mark, and coming toward the end of the book. We're in chapter 14, and I'm going to start. In a moment we'll have a prayer, and we're going to be starting around verse 43 rapidly, and then into the remainder. Right, so, Austin, would you lead us in prayer this morning? Thank you.
Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come together to study from the Gospel of Mark. Help us to look at your word, to look for lessons we can learn from it, especially as we begin to get farther along in the story about your son's sacrifice. In Jesus' name.
Okay, Mark 14, and okay. Mark 14, 43. Immediately while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, came up, accompanied by a crowd with swords and clubs, who were from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now he who was betraying him had given them a signal, saying, "Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize him and lead him away under guard." And after coming, Judas immediately went to him, saying, "Rabbi," and kissed him. They laid hands on him and seized him, but one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest and cut off his ear. And Jesus said to them, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as you would against a robber? Every day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But this has taken place to fulfill the scriptures." And they all left him and fled. Okay. All right, so let's get this thing going here. All right, so as we come into this section, these are things that we should carry with us all the time. We should think about these things. The Lord has provided that we come together on the first day of the week to remember Jesus' sacrifice, and not only his death, but also his life. But to think about the attitude that he had and what he was willing to do for the joy set before him, the joy of benefiting us. He endured the cross. And so this author says Jesus is in the grip of a shuddering horror as he faces the dreadful prospect before him. So we are, of course, approaching the crucifixion. And on the way to that, there are some people that are going to be doing everything within their power to get him crucified. They're going to pull out all the stops. They're going to do whatever they have to do, whether it's legal, whether it's illegal, whether it's moral, whether it's immoral, doesn't matter to them, not one bit. Their goal is for him to die. Okay, and so this is what we're going to be looking at here this morning. So they're coming out. First of all, we have the word immediately. And that struck me again because of the way that the book of Mark is written. I counted 43 times in the book that he uses the word immediately. Just boom, 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 boom. Everything moves along quite rapidly. And so he had said to the disciples, remember in verse 42, "Get up, let us be going. Behold, the one who betrays me is at hand." And immediately, while he was still speaking, okay, this crowd comes, and Judas with a crowd with swords and clubs. Okay, now they're coming to arrest a man. Okay, we have the Jewish leadership, the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. They are the ones that are instigating this, the Jewish leadership instigating this, and coming after Jesus. And of course, it had long been decided that he had to die. And you remember Caiaphas in the book of John had prophesied that one man had to die for the nation. So it was admitted then that he was doing many signs. If this keeps on going, everybody's going to go after him. And it kind of reminds me of when Lazarus was raised, and the Jewish leadership knew that that had happened. They understood that this great sign had been performed. And so their ultimate solution to that was to plot to kill Lazarus, so to take away the impression on the people of what had happened. So it's just a really blind kind of a mindset that these individuals are in. And so what are they afraid of? Okay. So here we have a well-armed mob that's come after Jesus. What are they afraid of, and what did they have to fear from Jesus? So when I asked the question, what are they afraid of, the answer to that is really in that question right there. What are they afraid of? Who are they afraid of?
The people.
All right, they're afraid of the people, but they're doing this at night. Okay, John tells us that it's at night, so that they don't confront all the people. Okay, so when Judas pointed Jesus out in another account, what did all that crowd do? They stepped back and they fell back. So who are they afraid of?
Jesus has power.
They're afraid of him.
Right.
Has he done anything? Has he now, he's never raised his hand against anyone, except perhaps in a sense in the temple when he cleansed it. But if they're afraid of Jesus, why might they be? Okay. Has he healed the sick? Has he raised the dead? Has he performed miracles? So he does have power. So that might. You thinking about something there, Austin? Okay. He's looking like he's on the verge. Yeah. So we're just looking at the scenario, swords and clubs coming to arrest. Now, of course, he has his followers there. Maybe they're concerned about what they may do. I mean, Peter did cut off somebody's ear, Malchus's ear there. Yeah, Steve?
Well, it just shows us how purposeful our Savior was.
Mm-hmm.
He came here, he came to this moment to die.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that he's been about from the very beginning was to provide himself as the sacrifice that none of us could ever do for ourselves. He was here to be the Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see it carried out here really clearly, because if he had not been purposeful, he could have done during daytime, he could have rallied everybody in Israel around him and taken over in a coup in an hour.
Oh, yeah.
in an hour. He could have had all the people that he'd seen, all of his miracles, all the good works that he'd done. He could have organized all of those people and appointed himself as emperor in a day. But it wasn't why he was here.
That's right.
So this whole thing is playing out exactly as it was supposed to. He didn't want all the people to see it. It happened at night because he was there to die, not to live.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, Chris?
Just this is a question. In verse 44 it says, now the betrayer had given them a sign saying, the one I kiss is the man, seize him and lead him away. Wouldn't they know who Jesus was? So why that?
Well, I don't, that's, you know, I mean, that's an interesting question,
I just don't know.
you know.
It was dark.
Oh, yeah, it was dark, so, yeah, it was dark.
There is a prophecy.
Isn't
about
there
it.
isn't he fulfilling prophecy?
Yeah,
About the kissing him?
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a prophecy that said he'll
Okay.
be betrayed by a kiss.
Okay, if anybody knows where that is, let me know. I'm thinking of, I've only got, the only thing that pops into my mind is the one who ate his bread, my bread is lifted up his heel against me, but if anybody, yeah, my mind didn't even go to that one, so, okay. That may be true, and, yeah, I mean, I just take it at face value, you know, he said, this is what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna kiss him, that'll be him.
It's just this time through it surprised me as I read it because I'd never really got kind of thought about the fact that they'd all seen him.
Yeah.
They wanted to seize him. In fact, times they couldn't seize him, and maybe it's because at times they had tried to seize him previously,
Yeah,
and he had evaded them.
yeah.
So maybe that was the reason why. But anyway, I just,
Yeah, and again, it's, you know, it could be because it was night too, you know, to make sure that, you know, he identifies the, yeah, so you always come up with those questions.
If they already knew who he was, they didn't need a betrayer at all. But that was a prophecy too, that he would be betrayed. I mean, if they just knew who he was, walked up and said, okay, here we go, Judas had no point in it, no participation in it.
Okay, that's good, Rick?
I don't really have anything to back up this thought, but one thing is that although Judas did betray Jesus, he still loved. There was some love there. There was some time spent where Jesus and Judas were around one another a lot, and there could have been a betrayal by some physical means, you know, a push, a shove, a grabbing, but Judas chose to kiss him. A very kind of a, if you will, kind of a subservient type of thing, you know, so that maybe he was trying to kind of save himself. I mean, he was such a coward, he didn't want to yell out, there he is, so he just kind of walked up and hugged him and kissed him, you know.
Well,
I think maybe he felt sorry, obviously, for what he did later.
he
There
did,
was some feelings there, there was a, you know,
yeah, he
that was
did.
his family, you know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but, you know, the fact that it starts out saying, what Judas, one of the 12, that even makes it worse. Because of what you're saying, is because of the time that was spent, because of the, I hope later on to do a kind of a, you know, pretty, well, I don't want to make it too big, but take a good look at, because we're going to have Judas and Peter involved in here, and to look at those two and kind of compare them. But Judas, because of the fact that he had the same opportunities as a Peter did, and saw miracles and sat at Jesus' feet, it just makes it worse. That not only he was one of those 12, but that then he portrayed him like a disciple would greet his rabbi, and he called him rabbi, you know, hail rabbi, and then kissed him to identify him in his betrayal. Now, when you were saying that, we always used to conjecture that, you know, Jesus had escaped so many times, or he had escaped various times when people wanted to seize him, that maybe he thought he would just get away again. What's kind of hard to understand is somebody having so shallow a thinking process that in order to get some quick, easy money, he's going to do this. Even if he did believe Jesus would escape. But Jesus, as we're going to see, is going to make sure he doesn't. Okay. And another thing, going along with Steve's comment about what Jesus could have done, he could have, and he points out at one of the other accounts, called on the Father, and he would have sent him, 12 legions of angels. And one thing that Jesus didn't ever say, and this is kind of connected to the confession that's going to come up in verse 61, he never said, I am the Messiah. You think about John 6:15 when they tried to make him king, and they associated the Messiah with a king.
Exactly.
If he had come out and said, I am the Messiah, I'm the king, he could have done that, but he never did. He never did, because he would have been misunderstood, and they would have seen him as claiming, to be king here. Okay, and then, he always avoided that. Okay, Tony?
But didn't he, in Luke 4, when he says, I am he, isn't that him telling them he's the Messiah?
Well,
They tried to kill him for it.
well, yeah, but, yeah. Okay, so,
His juices are flowing now.
Oh, we got him going again.
so, one of the points we'll make when we get to his answering the high priest saying that he is the Son of the Blessed One is that I have a question, and that is, did Jesus not make it known? In fact, in that one passage, I can't remember where it was, maybe one of you do, but when they asked him, who are you? Not in this one, not in Mark here. And he says, what have I been telling you from the beginning? He has made it known in many ways that he was the Son of God, okay? That he was sent from God. But when he says it in his trial, it's going to be a little different, okay? But yes, he has made that. I mean, he rides into Jerusalem, and everybody's praising him and hailing him, and he's accepting worship.
Right. He could have had it right there.
Yeah, there's just so many passages where he makes that known. Okay, but we're going to see a little difference when it comes to when he actually says it in the trial before the high priest. All right. Hey, Bassus, how you doing? Good to see you.
Just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Okay.
Hey, Darrell,
Yes.
question, and I know you were not in Mark to compare it to all the other Gospels.
Right.
But just a simple question, why, even though Mark doesn't discuss it, why did Jesus put the ear back?
Well, what he said was, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And that's where he said, I could call my Father and he would send the legions of angels. So remember what he told Pilate in John 18, my kingdom is not of this world, right? And in fact, a passage just popped into my head that this is in, if I can do this right, and if I don't do it right, then I'll just say forget it here. But I think it's 1 Corinthians No, maybe it's 2 Corinthians. Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9, okay. All right, so Paul says here, and he, in verse 3, 2 Corinthians 10, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but divinely powerful for the destruction of fortresses, okay, etc. So even Paul, as a disciple of Christ, in his dealing with his enemies, didn't war. He said, we don't war according to the flesh. See, so Jesus said, if my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that he was not, handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom's not of this world. So there are things that he could have done, so healing Malchus's ear was just an expression of that's not what we're about.
Right.
We don't fight that way.
That seemingly little event that's hardly noticed really speaks volumes,
Mhm.
because that could have been like the Boston Tea Party. The shot heard round the world. When that blood was shed, that could have been the pivot that here we go, I'm
Mhm.
going to take over right now, and instead, he made the problem go away.
Yeah,
He got rid of it so that it wouldn't be the beginning of his overthrow.
yeah,
It wasn't why he was there.
yeah,
He just fixed
Exactly.
the problem, made it go away, so that he could go do why he was there.
yeah, yeah. And interesting, on the other side of that, where Judas, the one I kiss, sees him and lead him away under guard. I mean, what, do you think Jesus was gonna run? Could you imagine that?
Right.
I mean, whoa, there wouldn't be a Christian faith if he did that, He wasn't going, he was submitting himself
Completely.
voluntarily because this is the plan of his Father. And it's going to be worked out exactly as the Father has told him, Rick?
Well, to your
Sorry, Robert, I'll get you.
To your initial question, what did they have to fear? Well, one, they feared not having control of the situation. That's why they came out with a big mob. They had
And with the Roman
right,
Roman soldiers too.
right.
Yeah,
They came out. Okay.
yeah.
So they came out to take Jesus by force at night. Okay. Jesus, from the very beginning, knew Judas was going to betray him. In fact, he told him at the table, go out and do what you need to do. Okay, think about it. Jesus knew they were coming to get him in the garden there. All he had to do was step forward and say, take me away. But back to the kiss,
Mhm.
it's kind of like he wanted Judas to learn something even at the point of betrayal, that he was going to have to come forward and, kiss him on his cheek and greet him like a kinsman. Okay, that had to be, I'm not excusing what Judas did, but boy, you talk about a heart sinking. When you're having to betray your rabbi with a kiss on the cheek, okay? That was going on. To Steve's point, the ear being healed, this was all Jesus being in control of the situation. He was determined to go to the cross,
Mhm.
and it was gonna play out. He
Mhm.
didn't want the physical warfare or the
Mhm.
the altercation. He was ready to go.
Mhm. Yeah. Robert?
I've got a question. I've never really heard an explanation, but when I read this passage, it always surprises me. What's Peter doing with a sword?
Yeah.
He's a fisherman, and
Well,
Jesus has been,
He
all
told
about
them-
peace and love, and
He told them to bring
Yep. so.
What'd you say, Tony?
He told him, Jesus told him to bring
Yeah, that was popping into my mind.
some.
But yeah, he had one,
Yeah.
he had one, and he didn't understand
Right.
what was going on.
They thought they had to protect him.
Yeah, and, Chris?
I think you can see, again, this is not the first time they've tried to seize Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so, look at that thread of control that happens from now all the way through his death when he gives up his body. Because they don't give it up. In fact, later on we're gonna see, Pilate's surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can I have the body? The what? Is he dead? Calls the centurion over, right? Jesus controls everything. So on the one hand, we see Jesus submitting to everything,
Mm-hmm.
and then on the other hand, we see Jesus in control of everything at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Steve?
Kind of planned to Chris's point, I was thinking of exactly that, but since he brought it up, I was reminded of the time when the crowd took Jesus to the edge of the cliff to throw him off and kill him.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in so much control of that situation that he just turned around and walked right through the middle of them and just left,
No, he
because it
escaped.
wasn't time yet.
Yeah, yeah,
That's such a cool scene.
yeah, yeah, he escaped. Yes, Sister Arlene?
Well, if you take that kiss, that means something. And it means something to everyone. It was probably a surprise. It was probably a calming effect on everyone else too. So the kiss is important to calm the situation.
Okay, perhaps.
I was just gonna say that, again, my question is, why did he have a sword? And yes, I understand Jesus said that, but that's one of those things that, again, to Steve's point, was that like the Boston Tea Party,
Yeah,
did he know that was gonna happen? Obviously, as deity, yes, but it just kind of, again, laying all this out it just boggles the mind sometimes.
yeah, I mean, it's just a hard question because, they've been in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus is praying, he's already told them that this is gonna happen.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, and so it could be that Peter, as being Peter, I don't know if anybody else in the group had a sword, but being Peter, I'm gonna be ready, because even if I have to die with him, we'll, and he didn't understand again what was going on. So it's a hard question because did he make a decision at some point, I'm gonna get a sword because, I don't know. But,
You see a series of contrasts between Jesus and everybody who's around him here in the garden. Jesus, his mercy in the face of the judgment that about to await him, and how he heals the priest's ear or the servant's ear. You see Jesus' faithfulness in contrast to the unfaithfulness. You see his faithfulness in contrast to Judas's betrayal specifically, which I think you're thinking of Psalm 2, verse 12. Verse says, pay homage, or your translation may say, kiss the Son, or he will be angry with you. Psalm 2 is a heavily messianic song. There in Psalm 2, verse 1, why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth take their stand against the rulers, conspire together against the Lord and his anointed one. And at the end, so I wonder, this is kind of like two comments in one, so that's about two.
There's two prophecies in Psalms about him being a close friend, being.
Right,
So what would show a close friend more than somebody who could come up and kiss you?
Right.
So it was like you said, even more meaningful because of that type of betrayal. It was his close friend.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure how to work this out in my mind, but some people, I've talked about when you're looking at Judas and his plan to betray and the interaction, okay? What you do quickly, or the one who dips his morsel is the one. He's giving him these opportunities, like I use the example, if I go in to rob a bank, and the bank teller says, I know why you're here. Now I've got an opportunity to go, maybe I should rethink this. Okay? And so Jesus had given them those opportunities. When he says to him, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? Was that another opportunity for him to think about what he's doing.
Right.
Now, maybe it's too late because he's already identified him, but you know, I'm kind of doing new thought here in the middle of the class, so, you know.
I have a different spin on this whole approach with Judas and his betrayal, and this is purely my opinion.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Judas Iscariot, if the last part of his quote name, as we know him, Iscariot, is connected linguistically to the Sicarii, which were Jewish assassins, what Judas is doing by betraying Jesus is basically going, look, I'm tired of waiting. Are you the king or not? I'm going to turn you over to the Romans so you get this party started. And so when he goes to Jesus and he kisses him, just as you would kiss the king. This is done by Judas trying to get a little money on the side, a little something on the side, to get the party started. So the Messianic Revolution, a physical kingdom, will get started. This is all in Judas's mind, putting little bits of his personality together. But again, that's my theory, my opinion, and my
Well, I think that would be well worth my looking into. That's interesting. So I'm gonna see if I can, yeah, good, thank you for that. I mean, there's always things that don't
Right.
meet the eye.
That's why we study the Bible.
Yeah, there's always these things that don't meet the eye. I really appreciate that. Okay, so finishing up this section, Jesus said in verse 49, every day I was with you in the temple teaching you and you did not seize me. So here's Jesus, his life was an open book. And if they had something to charge him with, they could have done so long before this. Okay? But the fact is that they didn't. And when we read about their efforts, the efforts of the Jewish leadership with regard to getting him convicted somehow, it just underscores the fact they can't find anything to convict him on. Okay? And so he's been in the temple, peaceful in the temple, teaching the people. Like I said, his life was an open book. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't have anything to hide, you know. But it says this has taken place to fulfill the scriptures. Okay? So, and they all left him and fled. And we talked about the kid with the person with the sheep and all that. We're not going to go back into that today. All right. So, any other comments or questions on that section? Okay, here we go. 53. And they led Jesus away to the high priest, and all the chief priests and elders and the scribes gathered together. Okay, so we have in 43 and in 53 the same group. Peter had followed him at a distance right into the courtyard of the high priest. So John knew someone there and the gatekeeper, and so he got in, and Peter goes in, and he was sitting with the officers and warming himself at the fire. Okay, so that's kind of a precursor to his denials that are coming here in a little bit. Now the chief priests and the whole council kept trying to obtain testimony against Jesus to put him to death, and they were not finding any. Okay, you know what this reminds me of is of Daniel, where they wanted to get Daniel killed, and probably envy the same way that he had, they had risen up to the, cream of the crop, risen up to the top, and they're trying to find something to convict him on. But you just see the mindset. I mean, he's going to tell us I think in verse 20. Don't let me say the number, but Pilate knew it was because of envy that they delivered him up. So that's the kind of the thing in the forefront. And so they're trying to obtain testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they were not finding any. for many who were giving false testimony against him, but their testimony was not consistent. Some stood up and began to give false testimony against him, saying, "We heard him say, 'I will destroy this temple made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another made without hands.' Not even in this respect was their testimony consistent. The high priest stood up and came forward and questioned Jesus, saying, 'Do you not answer? What is it that these men are testifying about you, against you?' But he kept silent and did not answer." All right? So, first of all, there are a whole bunch of things that were illegal about this. Whole bunch of things. And these are just some for instance here that, okay, well, let's do it that way. Okay. Let's just do it that way. Okay. It was illegal for the temple guard to make the arrest. Okay. It should have been done by the voluntary action of the witnesses. Problem is, they don't have any witnesses. So it's just wrong. I mean, how is this for justice? Okay. You get arrested for no reason. Okay. Somebody doesn't want you around, so you get arrested for no reason. You're taken in, and then the authorities try to find something to charge you with. Okay. I mean, that's just insane. You know? And there wasn't they can't find anything. So anyway, that was illegal. It was illegal to try a capital case, and this is according to rabbinic law, to try a capital case for life at night. They could have a trial for money. It's called a trial for money at night, but a trial for life was not to be tried at night. A lot of things that go along with that one. It was illegal for the judges to cross-examine the prisoner after the testimony of the witnesses had broken down. All right, so the charges that they have made, we heard him say, and there'll be other things that they'll say we'll look at in a moment. When that testimony broke down, and it did, none of that stood. Okay, and we'll look at why here. But when that testimony broke down, that should have been it. It's done. Okay? And so another thing, that if it could be demonstrated that those witnesses, that the testimony was false, according to Deuteronomy 19:15 through 21, they should have suffered the same punishment that the falsely accused would have. Okay? That was the law. But they weren't thinking about that. Okay. So I mean, so you think about some of the things that we've talked about, for instance, when Jesus cleansed the temple, and we talked about the corruption that was existing at that time, and the Sadducees and the animals to be sacrificed and the money changing tables, they owned all that. They were making a lot of money on that temple, okay, and the things that were going, and just the corruption that existed there already. So now when it comes to Jesus, should we be surprised that they're acting in this manner? Okay? Because that's what they've been doing, the spirit that's been prevailing the whole time anyway, right? And so what we have here is there were three kinds of testimony. Okay? So after the witness's testimony broke down, it should have been over with. He should have been acquitted. Okay. Now, there's three kinds of testimony that they recognize. So one was a vain testimony. So when these witnesses didn't agree, okay, when they weren't consistent, that's a vain testimony. It's just thrown out. Okay? And ultimately, it was, because that's not what they're going to going to quote unquote convict him of. Okay? But that was one testimony. The other is a standing testimony accepted provisionally, okay, unless confirmed, until confirmed or otherwise. We're going to hear it be easier. And so there was a standing testimony, and then there's an adequate testimony, okay, that fits all the criteria. At least two witnesses, their witnesses is consistent, and everything is done open and above board, then that would be, that would suffice, but that's not what happened. And so the testimony that was given did not go beyond that second provisional stage. And it didn't go beyond that, so it should have been all over. Okay? Now you might wonder, as we're going through this, I can't believe it's like that time already.
It's time already, yeah.
As you look at the characters involved, the conniving, Caiaphas, and the betraying Judas, later the mob. Of course, it's the leadership that really cries for him to be crucified. But one of the things that we have to think about is, as we look at those characters, we always have to be careful not to sit back and look down our nose at them and, because could I be one of those?
Amen.
We always have to ask.
We gotta break up the show here.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
The grand entrance.
The grand entrance.
Hi, Miss Linda.
How are you?
I'm fine. It's nice to see you.
I guess I've gone back to the myths, right?
Back to the what?
The myths.
The myth? Oh. Yeah, no problem, no problem. There are three main charges that they're going to bring against Jesus. One, that he threatened to destroy the temple. Did he threaten to destroy the temple? Did he say, I'm going to destroy? No, he did not say that.
I want to clean it out.
And so we're going to have to end here, but on that point, is it more, what do you think? Is it more damaging to just tell an out and out blatant lie about somebody, or to twist something that they actually said? See, that's a lot more damaging than just to come up with some, so people are going, what? Where'd that come from? But, okay, so they're going to twist what he said. So we have to stop here because we just don't have any more time. Okay, so Austin will pick this up. I have a couple of really important things that I want to do. I want to do a comparison of Judas and Peter at some point. And I also want us to look at, when we get to the point where Jesus is crucified, I want to also present something really interesting, because the process of Jesus coming to the cross matches exactly the process. And we're gonna use Nero as an example of the coronation process of the emperor. And so I want to take a look at that, and there's a really strong point that's going to be